once heard someone say that secrets can ruin a marriage. But in my case, a secret saved mine. Not because it was small or harmless or because I was proud of keeping it, but because it protected the only part of my life that my husband and his mother tried so hard to take away from me. And tonight, I'm ready to finally tell you what happened inside the house they thought belonged to them. The house that was mine long before they ever walked through the door. Before I begin, please, if you're here with me, if you're listening to this story with an open heart, like and subscribe, and stay till the end. Because this isn't just a story about a house. It's about survival, self-worth, and the moment I finally stopped apologizing for existing in my own home. Let me take you back to the beginning. I wasn't supposed to fall in love with Daniel. He wasn't the type of man who grew gently. He didn't unfold slowly like a flower. No, he was a storm. A quick, loud, charming storm that swept into my life at a time when I didn't even know I was lonely. Everyone told me I was lucky. Lucky he chose me. Lucky he loved me. Lucky he wanted to marry me despite what they called my quiet life. I never told them that the quiet wasn't loneliness. It was peace. Peace I had built with my own hands after losing my parents so young. Peace that lived in the house they left behind for me. The house I maintained alone, fixed alone, paid taxes for alone. The house that held my childhood laughter and my last memory of my mother's voice singing softly in the kitchen. I didn't tell Daniel the house was mine because I didn't think it mattered. I never imagined it would become my shield. The first few months of marriage were beautiful. The kind that lull you into believing life finally decided to be gentle with you. Daniel would walk through the door after work, kiss my forehead, wrap his arms around me, and say he loved the way our house felt. Our house, he always said. Our space, our beginning. I didn't correct him. Perhaps I should have. But when you love someone, you don't count the things you own. You count the things you're willing to share. His mother, though, she counted everything. She walked into my home on the first visit the way a landlord walks into a rental, eyes scanning, judging, assessing value. She ran her finger along my mantle as if checking for dust and said, "You did well, Daniel. This place has potential." She didn't look at me when she said it. Didn't ask if I liked my own home. Didn't ask about the memories that lived inside the walls. Didn't ask about my parents or the 20 years they spent building this life for me. From that moment, something shifted. In the first month, she suggested that we paint the walls. In the second month, she said the furniture looked too cheap. In the third, she insisted the kitchen needed renovating because the cabinets looked too outdated for a married couple starting a real life. And Daniel listened. He nodded. Agreed. Took her side every single time. I kept quiet because I loved him. I stayed silent because I thought maybe marriage was about compromise. Maybe my home becoming our home meant letting go of old attachments. But compromise feels different when you're the only one doing it. One evening, I overheard Daniel on the phone with her. He didn't know I was standing behind the door. He said, "I know, Mom, but it's not exactly my house. It's hers." Well, yes, I guess the paperwork's in her name. Her parents left it to her. Yeah. He sounded irritated, embarrassed, as if admitting the house wasn't his was somehow a confession of weakness. A moment later, he added, "But once everything's renovated, it'll feel more like mine, like ours, more like his, less like mine." Something inside me shivered. I didn't know that conversation was just the beginning. A few days later, his mother arrived unannounced, as she often did, holding glossy brochures for a luxury kitchen remodel. "We'll rip these cabinets out," she said, pulling one open as if testing its strength. "And these drawers cheap. They'll go too." I stepped forward. "Wait," I said quietly. This was my mother's kitchen. She gave me a tight smile, the kind a dentist gives before telling you the cavity is worse than they thought. Oh, sweetheart, that was a long time ago. You're married now. You need to upgrade. She spoke as if my mother were just a phase I should have grown out of. And Daniel stood behind her with his hands in his pockets and didn't say a word. That night, I reminded him gently, "This is my family home." And he replied, "But it's our life now. You can't keep living in the past." My past, my parents, my home, all reduced to a sentence still. I loved him. Or maybe I loved the idea of him. The idea of not facing life alone. So I let the renovations begin. Walls I painted with my mother were torn down. Cabinets my father built with his own hands were discarded. Even the old wooden floor, the one that creaked when I danced on it as a child, was ripped up and replaced with something more modern. They said it would feel like a fresh start. But all I felt was loss that I didn't dare speak out loud, because every time I tried, Daniel dismissed it. "You're being dramatic. It's just wood. You should be grateful we're improving things." I swallowed my hurt until silence became my language. But silence makes people bold. One evening, his mother suggested something that made the ground beneath me shift. "Daniel," she said, "what if you added your name to the house documents? It would only be fair. You're the man here, and she shouldn't hold everything." Hold everything? I held nothing. I had already given up every inch of myself to make this marriage feel real. Before I could speak, Daniel said the words that cracked something deep inside me. "You're right. Mom, we'll talk about transferring it later." Transfer? Transfer what? My inheritance? My history? My parents' love? I stared at him, my heart thudding painfully. "You want me to put the house in your name?" I asked softly. He didn't hesitate. "It's the right thing to do. We're married. Nothing should be just yours." His mother added, "And it shouldn't be in a woman's name alone. It's not proper. Not proper." A house my parents worked their whole lives to give me was suddenly not proper. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't even sleep. I just lay awake listening to the quiet hum of the house, the home that had sheltered me, raised me, protected me. And for the first time, I realized I had been protecting it to from him, from her, from anyone who wanted to own what wasn't theirs. The next morning, I left early. Alone, I walked to the bank and locked the deed in a safety deposit box, somewhere no one would ever accidentally find it, somewhere no one could ever claim it. And I made a copy of the deed, a copy only I could access. I came home before they woke up. And when Daniel's mother looked at the walls and the floors and the kitchen and said, "It finally looks like ours," I thought to myself, "You have no idea how wrong you are." Because the secret I kept was no longer a secret of convenience. It was my lifeline. And very soon, that secret would save me in a way I never expected. The morning after I had the deed, something inside me felt different. Not stronger. Not yet. Not brave. Just aware. Aware that love was no longer the only thing at stake. I wasn't protecting a house. I was protecting the last piece of myself that still existed untouched. But Daniel and his mother, they weren't done taking. Not even close. A week later, his mother showed up with a stack of documents pressed tightly under her arm and a bright, confident smile that made my stomach tighten. She placed them on the kitchen table, my mother's old table, the only thing I refused to replace, and said, "Here, these are the papers for the transfer. All you need to do is sign. Sign. Sign away my parents' life. Sign away the only home I ever knew. Sign away my security, my memories, my everything." Daniel walked in behind her, leaning against the doorway as if this was all perfectly normal. He crossed his arms and said calmly, "Mom's right. This keeps things fair. We're a family. Family share. Share. That word used to mean comfort, companionship, partnership. With them, it meant loss. I sat down slowly. The papers stared at me like hungry mouths. What do I even get if I sign this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His mother laughed. Laughed. You get a husband, sweetheart, and a future. Isn't that enough? My jaw tightened. Enough. Enough for whom? My husband didn't look at me. He didn't kneel beside me, or hold my hands, or ask what I needed. He just waited, impatient, expecting. As if love meant surrender. As if being his wife meant giving up my identity. I didn't sign. Not that day. But my refusal, my quiet, steady refusal, became the spark that lit something much darker inside Daniel. He started coming home late, blaming work, blaming stress, blaming me. Sometimes, you make things difficult, he'd mutter under his breath. You don't understand how marriage works. You're selfish, selfish, for protecting what was mine. Selfish, for wanting to feel safe, selfish, because I didn't hand over my last lifeline on a silver platter. Every day after that felt like walking into a storm. His mother visited more often, her comments becoming sharper, bolder, cutting through my silence like knives. This place still doesn't feel like his, she'd say. She still treats it like her shrine. She needs to grow up. Once, when she thought I couldn't hear, she whispered to him, you should have married someone who understands respect. Double quotes respect. Funny word coming from someone who kept trying to erase me. I began noticing things disappearing from the house. Small things at first, a picture frame, a vase, a piece of my mother's embroidery. When I asked where they went, Daniel shrugged. They didn't match the new decor. Didn't match. Didn't matter. Didn't belong anymore. One evening, I found one of my father's wooden carvings, a small bird he made for me when I was 8, in the trash. I lifted it out with trembling hands, dust and coffee grounds sticking to its wings. Daniel walked in, saw me holding it, and said, you really need to let go of these old things. Old things. He didn't mean the carving. He meant my memories, my roots, my identity. Something broke then, quietly, silently, the way a heart cracks when it realizes it's been loving, alone. But I still stayed. I stayed because I believed marriage meant patience, understanding, staying when it hurt. But then something happened that made the ground beneath me split open completely. One afternoon, I came home early from the grocery store. The lights were off. The house was quiet, and I heard voices coming from the living room. Daniel and his mother, talking in low tones, sharp tones, tones that tasted like betrayal. His mother said, you need to pressure her. Women like her only listen when pushed. Women like her. As if I were a problem, a category, a burden. Daniel replied, she's stubborn. It's like she thinks the house is her whole identity. His mother scoffed. Well, we need her to sign before we start the real renovations, especially the upstairs. You know how much value that adds. Double quotes value. Money. It wasn't even about marriage or family or unity. They wanted the house because the house was worth something. I stepped into the doorway before either of them noticed me. Daniel's mother's face flushed with surprise, then annoyance. Oh, I didn't know you were home. I looked at Daniel. He looked at me, and for the first time, I didn't see my husband. I saw someone who wanted something from me. Someone willing to reshape me the way he reshaped my home, until I fit his vision. What real renovations? I asked quietly. He hesitated. Then he lied. It's nothing, just improvements. His mother added, we might change the upstairs layout once the ownership is settled. She said it so casually that I wondered how long they had been planning this future without me in it. A future where my home became their property, their project, their asset. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. "I'm not signing," I said. Daniel stepped forward, jaw clenched. "You will." It wasn't a request. It was a promise, a threat wrapped in entitlement. The house suddenly didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a battlefield, and I felt like a soldier who had been fighting a war without even realizing it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt louder. Every memory felt heavier. I walked through each room, running my fingers along the walls, as if saying goodbye. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew something had shifted irreversibly, and the house, my house, was no longer safe. There are moments in life when a person realizes they don't have to stay to prove their strength. Sometimes leaving is the only way to survive. I just didn't know then that a storm much worse was waiting for me. A storm that would turn everything upside down and force me to make a choice I never imagined. A choice that would lead me to the quietest, strongest, most poetic revenge I've ever taken. I don't think people understand the silence that follows betrayal. It isn't loud. It isn't chaotic. It's empty, like someone pulled the oxygen out of the room and left you to breathe through memory alone. That's how the house felt the week after they left. Yes, left. Let me trace it slowly, because even now my hands shake when I remember how everything unfolded. It didn't happen through screaming or breaking dishes or some dramatic confrontation. It happened in the smallest ways, like the universe was quietly shifting furniture inside my soul. The morning after his mother tried to shout me out of my own kitchen, I stayed silent. Not because I was weak, no. Because silence is a language loud people can't understand. I watched them, my husband and his mother, huddle in the living room, whispering in a tone that assumed ownership. A tone that assumed entitlement. A tone that assumed I owed them something. I was stirring tea, my hands steady, my heart slow and strangely calm. I think that was the moment something inside me detached. Something I had tried so hard to hold together. I didn't walk into the living room. I didn't ask what they were planning. I didn't defend myself. I simply let them believe what they wanted. Because the truth, the one truth that had saved me all these years, was that everything they were standing on, every tile, every wall, every window, belonged to me. And they had no idea. But the universe has a wicked, poetic way of revealing truth when the time is right. 3 days after the incident, I came home from work and found my husband on the phone in the backyard. He didn't see me at first. "My mother says it's better if she moves in permanently," he said into the phone. "It's our house to mine and my wife's, so she has the right. But I need to convince my wife to put it in our names. Otherwise, things will feel unbalanced." He laughed lightly, a confident, careless laugh. "She'll agree. She always does. She's soft. It's easy to make her feel guilty." I closed my eyes. And for the first time, I didn't feel pain. I felt understanding. Understanding of who he really was. Understanding of how long I had been blind. Understanding of why I had made the house decision the way I did. Because I knew this part of life would come. The part where people reveal themselves only when they think. "You have no power left." His mother joined him outside. I stayed hidden behind the curtain. "She doesn't deserve the house," his mother said bluntly. "She didn't even give me grandchildren. What did she do that was so special?" He didn't defend me. Not once. I think that was the final thread. The thread that snapped so quietly, it felt like a whisper. I didn't confront them that night, or the night after. I simply made calls. Quiet, calm, firm calls. To my lawyer, to the bank, to the property registrar, to the moving company. I wasn't planning a dramatic escape. I was preparing to reclaim the life I should have never surrendered. By the following week, I had everything ready. And then, like life, wanted to seal its own poetic ending. My husband and his mother walked into the house on Friday evening with their luggage. Suitcases. Two of them. I blinked slowly. His mother looked proud, triumphant, already rearranging her face into an expression that said, "This house is finally mine." My husband avoided my eyes. As if guilt and entitlement were fighting inside his chest. "What's going on?" I asked softly. His mother answered instead, "We're moving in. I'll be staying here permanently now." My husband exhaled, trying to soften it. "It's just for some time," he muttered. "We figured it's best for the family. And maybe we can start the house transfer paperwork next month." I felt something rise in me. Not anger, not heartbreak. Power. Soft, quiet, feminine power. "Move your things into the guest room first," I said gently. "I need to take care of something." I walked into my bedroom, picked up the envelope resting on the dresser, the one I had prepared days ago. When I came back, they were both sitting on the couch. My husband's mother was already giving directions. "This sofa should move there. We need new curtains. Your wife should cook more nutritious meals." I smiled. It was a tragic smile, the kind you give before a storm hits. "I want you both to read something," I said. I handed the envelope to my husband. He opened it. His face fell. I wish I could say I felt satisfaction, but what I truly felt was relief. Because the papers in his hand were eviction notices, legally drafted, legally binding, legally enforceable, issued by my lawyer, on behalf of me, the sole owner of the property. "What is this?" he whispered. His mother grabbed the papers, skimmed them, and went pale. "You can't do this. This isn't your house." But her voice cracked. Because she remembered. She remembered that I had always been the one who paid the bills. My name was on every document, every deed, every utility. My husband looked at me like he'd never seen me before. "Why? Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, voice trembling. And for the first time in years, he didn't sound entitled. He sounded desperate. I sat down across from them, my voice quiet, but firm. "Because love doesn't need ownership. Because marriage shouldn't be about titles or houses. Because I thought you loved me, not what I owned." He nodded slowly, as if the truth was finally sinking into his bones. "But when I heard you telling your mother you'd convince me, when I overheard her saying I didn't deserve the house, I realized something." I leaned back, breathing steadily. "You didn't love me. You loved the comfort I provided." His eyes filled with regret. Real regret. Not performative, not manipulative, the kind that lingers for years. "I made mistakes," he whispered, "and I accepted them." I replied, "But the moment you allowed someone else to take over my life, my home, my dignity, the marriage ended." His mother stood up. "You're going to regret this," she spat. I smiled again. Not cruelly, just honestly. Double quotes, no. I finally stopped regretting. She stormed out. He followed her, slowly, turning back once, looking at me with a grief that came too late. That night, for the first time in a decade, the house was quiet, peaceful, sacred, mine. A week later, the divorce papers were signed. He didn't fight them, maybe because he knew there was nothing left to fight for. Years passed, and people often ask if it made me bitter. No. It made me awake. Because the truth is, when I got married, it saved me that I didn't tell them the house was mine. Not because of the house, but because it saved me from losing myself completely. Today, I sit in the same living room, the one they tried to take from me. Sunlight fills the space. My plants have grown taller. My laughter returns easily now. And every time someone visits, They tell me the house feels alive. Maybe because I finally do, too.